Cyberpunk 2077 has seen a number of welcome additions make their way into the game throughout its 2 years of life. One of the more quality of life features we've seen added is that of more player apartments, the inclusion of which provide a range of different living conditions which V can enjoy from across Night City. From slumming it down in the slums to living it like there's no tomorrow, quite literally in fact, in the Corpo Penthouses. Furthermore, each of these apartments provide a nice range of interactions and bonuses too, some of which can actually apply some pretty neat buffs for when you're off warring against gangs. There's no doubt that after a tough day facing near-death experiences, as well as fighting time itself, every V needs a place to hang up their boots and just chill. That's why today I'm going to be ranking all 6 apartments in Night City which we can call a home. I'll be considering all sorts of factors, from aesthetics, stuff to do, buffs, as well as location, in order to decide once and for all which is best. Remember, as always with these ranking videos, this is just my opinion, and whilst I'll be sharing points to back up my reasoning, I fully respect that others might have structured this list completely differently. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Down in 6th place is the apartment over in Northside. It's by far the cheapest rentable apartment in the game, coming in at a mere 5,000 eddies, and when we enter the location, it's kind of clear why. Granted, I've seen worse locations in Night City than this, and I didn't actually see many gang members on the way in here. The little apartment complex where this is situated is clearly a far-flung difference from the pristine Corpo highlife, though at the same time, I don't think it's any more than you can expect at this price. As we step inside, this little pop-up describes it as, quote, authentically functional. It's not cramped, it's cozy, end quote. And you know what? This place ain't as terrible as I was expecting. Sure, the wallpaper isn't what I'd have gone for, and the size might mean everything seems a little bit cluttered, but from a gameplay perspective, this place offers a lot to do within such a small space. As always, we have the staples of a bed and wardrobe, as well as the Roach Race arcade machine tucked in here. This is a load of fun, and is essentially the same principle as the IRL dinosaur game that you get when the internet doesn't work. The bathroom's a bit gammy, but seems functional, and there's also a generous armory in the back here despite the cramped space. Sure, it's being held up by ugly support struts, but the actual wall decor, not bad. I can imagine V tinkering away here with their guns late at night. Finally, this corner desk is something I'm a little bit envious of, to be honest. For a modern day inhabitant of 2022, this is what would be referred to as a nice setup, bro. There is a somewhat scary email here though about the previous resident mysteriously disappearing. Now, if that were me and I just moved into a place, I would not be able to sleep. I mean, come on, that's just going to be playing on your mind the whole time. Like, what if there's a murderer out targeting residents of that apartment? What if the previous guy actually went cyber psycho and breaks back in one night? Nah, man, I'm not staying here. I'm going back home. We've made our way back to V's original apartment. Now, despite being a bit more bare bones than those higher on the list, this is always going to be a little bit iconic in my eyes. Partly because it was the only apartment available when I first played the game on release, but also because it's identical to David Martinez's apartment in Edge Runners. Something I do really like about it is its open plan spaciousness, with a lot of floor space to move around. The bed is cozily tucked away here with a chill little lounge area, which I actually wouldn't mind having in real life. Our armory stays in its own separate room, and I think that's much nicer and more secluded than the one in Northside, keeping workshop work separate to more chilled living. Finally, the window, whilst being a nice view, is a little bit small for my liking, and doesn't really compare to others higher on the list. Overall, V's starting apartment isn't a bad place to live by any means, it's just overall a little bit bland and devoid of character as far as I'm concerned. 4th on this list is V's Penthouse. Now, this place is without a doubt the largest, and dare I say best, living quarters you can technically own in the whole game. The reason it's down in 4th place, however, is due to the fact that we can only technically own it for about 5 to 10 minutes of playtime. That's because it's only acquired during the Path to Glory ending of the game, one of 4 which can be chosen. It's a real shame that it isn't accessible properly, since it's easily got the most potential, with a massive open plan space complete with expensive looking decor and one hell of a nice view. The Penthouse represents V at the height of power within Night City, having ascended to the role of living legend and now enjoying their final days in the epitome of luxury, before heading off to the Crystal Palace at any rate. Alas, perhaps it's fitting that we only get to experience the best Night City has to offer right at the very end. For our third spot sits the Corpo Plaza apartment. Now this is by far the most expensive buyable apartment in the game, coming in at 55,000 eddies. Despite being the supposed epitome of luxury, however, I found this place actually somewhat underwhelming compared to what I expected. Sure, it's got a fancy looking reception, complete even with security scanners, so there's no fearing for your safety here. In fact, compare it to Northside and the two might as well be in different worlds. Arriving at our apartment floor, I can even praise this hallway for how clean it looks. And the apartment, well, it is pretty neat. Very fancy and corpo looking for sure. The bed is obscured by a bamboo wall, which utilizes that technique of using houseplants to decorate modern builds, which I really love. It reminds me of a real life bar I went to in Germany, actually, which I recall really admiring the decor of. The view is a little underwhelming for what you'd expect, not gonna lie. There's also a little coffee machine and a lot of wine glasses on the side, presumably for all the Corpo buddies you'll be hosting every night. It's funny, there's actually an email here from an angry resident who's complaining about, as he puts it, window exhibitionists. Indeed, it appears at least some of the Corpos in this building are used to partying in a, shall we say, less than innocent way. The kitchen also allows us to enjoy some fancy looking green tea, a cigarette or two, and a glass of whiskey. There's also a table by the door holding a nice record player and an incense burner, which I couldn't personally interact with. That's weird because in another apartment on this list, we can. Maybe I just had stuff in the way. By the bed, there's a few weights and a skipping rope, with gym space supposedly being in the middle of the room somewhere. The office/armory room is actually really cool, and of all the rooms one could work in thus far, this one's personally giving me the best vibes. The shower and wardrobe are also fine here, though to be honest, have no more practical application than V's apartment. The bathroom does have a gold-plated toilet, however, which in my eyes is a little excessive, but to some might be a dream come true. Overall, I like this place, I really do, but for 55,000 eddies, I don't know, I just expected, well, more. It's not that much bigger than V's place, and compared to others on this list, there isn't even that much to do in terms of interactive things. Canonically, I guess the security feature is a big plus, though maybe not so much for V. For the apartment interior itself, I guess I'm comparing it to the Penthouse a little and feeling a bit shortchanged. Hell, my apartment in GTA up in Vinewood Hills gives off similar vibes to this, though that's just far more spacious and feels like more of a reward worth the grind I went through to get it than, well, this place. Before I unveil our top two, I want to touch briefly on the 3 places marked on the map which are technically apartments for V, in that we can sleep and stash things there, though that's kind of it. Up first we got the Aldecaldos camp. Very little I can say about this, it's a tent in a camp. That's it. Don't get me wrong, I love spending time with the Aldecaldos during the game's story, and even coming back briefly to this camp and seeing the campfire community vibe, it makes me happy, but their actual living conditions aren't really a talking point. Then we have River's sister's place, just outside Night City. The view from here is nice, the place, not so much. I get that it's designed like that to contextualize River's story, but no. After those missions are wrapped up, nobody I think in their right mind would choose to come back here above the other places. Upon re-exploring this place, I stumbled into a room to discover some scene from The Exorcist. Yeah, no, never coming back here again, thank you, goodbye. Now, Judy's place is an interesting one. Out of all these 3, it's the only one I'd actually consider using as a home. Sure, the area isn't the friendliest, but the interior actually sports a lot of character. I'm a huge fan of this wall graffiti, and I think it's very Judy. Now, whilst this apartment has nothing on the top 4 for me, I'd defo pick it over the Northside apartment, and even maybe V's apartment, though I think those two are kind of on par. For players who romance Judy especially, maybe this place would be nice to keep coming back to, and be reminded of her. Oh, and I almost forgot, since it didn't come up on the map for me, but Kerry Uridine's villa can also serve as an apartment in the same vein. Okay, this place is on par with V's penthouse, I'd say. It's even got robot guards, with hats. It goes without saying, this place is in an entirely different league to all the other honourable mentions here. The problem is, it's not ours, it's Kerry's, and well, I couldn't exactly go making this place an official ranking entry and not all the others now, could I? Quick disclaimer for the final 2, I really struggled here to choose, and with so many factors to juggle around when deciding in my head, I think I ultimately came to a conclusion by considering whether, if it were me, In real life, which would I rather live in? Therefore, in second place is the apartment in Japantown. Now, this may be partly influenced by the fact that on the way over there, I was unreasonably accosted by what appeared to be a Jack the Ripper wannabe. But having, defeated Adam Smasher with relative ease, he wasn't much of a problem. Nevertheless, it's a bad first impression for an area to give when you're considering buying real estate there. Despite the unfortunate encounter, I still bought the place, at a reasonable 15,000 eddies no less. Heading on up, I was greeted by undoubtedly the coziest apartment on this list. It's described to you as, quote, where style meets character. Make yourself comfortable, stay a while, soak up the vibe, end quote. And I gotta tell you, I am definitely vibing right now. Right of the door is a bookshelf assorted with various decorations, including one of those weird statues we keep seeing. Could this apartment have something to do with the FF06B5 mystery? Let's not find out, today at least, since that rabbit hole would take us on a tangent which would at the very least 5x this video's runtime. A unique feature of the Japantown apartment is this guitar, which we can pick up and actually play if we want to. It's immersion enhancing stuff like this that I love about these apartments, and to be honest, it's a real shame that there aren't more interesting features like this about the place. The apartment also features metal shutters, which I wouldn't adore in real life, but think are a cool and innovative feature here. Just a shame the windows actually obscure the view somewhat, though to be honest, it's not the best one here anyway. The dragon incense burner is a nice touch, and further exacerbates the cozy vibe of this apartment, though if I'm being really finicky, this design is realistically going to wind up with ash everywhere. The armory is cool, standing separate from the rest of the apartment whilst also kind of fitting with the vibe. And there's yet another FF06B5 reference right there, a much more obvious one. Another video, my friends, another video. Overall, this apartment sits at number 2 because whilst it may not be the biggest or in the nicest area, it is really cozy, and sometimes that's all that matters. It's cozy and I want to say vibey. Is that a word? It is now. Finally, at number 1, yours truly has chosen the 40,000 eddy apartment, which can be found over in the Glen. Inside the first door, we're greeted with a lobby, which, whilst not on the same level compared to the Corpo Plaza, is perfectly adequate and nicer than that of Japantown. Into the actual apartment, this one's described as, quote, where tradition meets modernity, a designer loft with an unbeatable view, end quote. Indeed, this place has that brick-based open-plan loft aesthetic, and whilst not necessarily as cozy as Japantown per se, I love it. It feels modern, but vintage at the same time, a perfect merging of the two worlds so many people strive to live in. With a vinyl player on the coffee table, a pool table in the corner. Actually, I want to touch on that quickly. Look, whilst I don't expect CDPR to implement 8-ball pool into this game, a white ball potting another white ball? I mean, come on. Still, the aesthetic is there, and I've always wanted a place with a pool table, so there's that. There's also a massive sofa and TV which sits just in front of one of the best views in the whole of Night City. The workshop, as usual, is neatly tucked away, this time appearing to double as a server room. Just what all these drives and stuff do, I couldn't say. Though it is a very technically driven world we're living in. Whatever the case, it's a fitting vibe for this place. I also think the drinks display looks really good amidst the brick design here, and as a general fan of cocktails and cocktail making myself, I appreciate this and would love to have it in my own home. The entire kitchen, in fact, doesn't overextend itself. Tucked away in the corner here, it really works with the open plan nature of the loft. Upstairs, we have a well-placed bed with an excellent view to look out on whilst falling asleep. Now, you ain't gonna get that in the Corpo apartment. I'm not a huge fan of this mesh bit of flooring. I feel like you'd always have to wear shoes up here. Still, it's a video game, and maybe I'm getting a little too introspective at this point. The bathroom's really nice, with yet another gold-plated toilet, which I actually think this time works really well for the room's aesthetic and doesn't feel oversold. Finally, one of my absolute favourite things about this apartment is the library corner, complete with a beanbag to sit and read on. These shelves sport actual, real books in Cyberpunk. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for digitizing pretty much everything nowadays, but one thing I'm still a huge fan of is a physical book. Now, I know this corner achieves nothing practically, but in terms of aesthetic, I just love it. And it even allows V to give off more of that intellectual vibe, which we know from the game's dialogue they most certainly have. Overall, the Glen apartment is my number 1, largely down to personal aesthetic preference, and whilst we can't wind down by rocking on the guitar here at the end of the day, that's okay, because we can sit in our reading chair flicking through actual books, get some work done in our cool futuristic servers room before finally falling asleep with a great view of the Night City skyline. But if you completely disagree with my ranking, then that's fair enough. This is undoubtedly one of the most subjective rankings one can do in Cyberpunk 2077. So comment down below your favourite apartment in this game and why. I'd love to get a general idea on what other people think of these. As always, if you enjoyed the video, likes go a long way. And finally, if you want to stay up to date on all my Cyberpunk videos, then please do hit that subscribe button and notification bell. I aim to deliver a new video every Tuesday and Thursday, covering everything from lore, builds, rankings, and general tips and tricks. Thanks for watching. I'm Sam Brown, you guys are awesome, and I'll see you in another video.